Hi, everybody. This is Mike Gerdes from the Greater Philadelphia Center for Spiritual Living, and this is our beautiful dog, Yoga. Hey, today I want to be talking about something that motivates a lot of people. It pushes a lot of people. Has people do things that sometimes they want to do and sometimes they don't want to do. And that thing is fear. You know, it's sad to say that many of us have had fear rule our lives. They've kept us from doing things that we've wanted to do. It's kept us from fulfilling our dreams, from taking that class, from asking that girl to dance. I remember when I was in middle school. Do you remember those middle school dances? And they'd have those gatherings at the clubhouse at the civic center, and all the girls would be on one side and all the boys would be on the other side, and you'd be waiting to go ask the girl to dance. And how many of us just stood in the sidelines? You know, fear really messes us up. It really does. You know, it's said that we're only born with two fears. That's a fear of loud noises and a fear of falling. Well, that makes sense. But to me, another fear that comes, we learn very early in life, is the fear of being left alone. A child left alone without being cuddled, without being cared for, without being cooed at, without being told that it's loved and held, they can develop some real fears. Now, these may not be conscious fears, but they're subjectified. And Dr. Holmes tells us in the Science of Mind textbook that when it comes to fear, it affects us both on the conscious and on the subconscious, the subjective side. And if we're going to change things, we have to change it both consciously and subjectively. Well, what does that mean to us? Well, for one thing, we ought to recognize fear for what it is. And usually what fear is false evidence appearing real. How's that for an acronym? Because the truth be known is that who you are, who I am, is the divine in expression by means of us. And the saying goes, if God be for us, who can be against us? The first thing to do would be to ask ourselves, or the next thing to do would be to ask ourselves, what are we afraid of? What really are we afraid of? What's the worst possible thing, worst possible outcome that we're looking at? There's an old joke that says that we only have one thing to worry about: if we get sick or we stay well. If we get sick, then the only thing we have to worry about is are we going to get well, or are we not going to get well? Are we going to get worse? And if we get worse, then the question is, are we going to die or not going to die? And if we die, the question is whether we're going to go to heaven or we're going to go to hell. And the good news is, if you go to heaven, there's no problem. If you go to hell, you'll be so busy shaking hands with all of your friends that you won't even notice where you're at. I digress. Sorry. But the point of it is, fear gets in the way of our life. Fear gets in the way of us doing what it is that we could do and we want to do. And so what I urge us all to do is just take a look and see how fear has affected different areas of our life. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down what you're afraid of. Go ahead, make a list. And then I challenge you to list then how that has affected you. Has that prevented you from asking that lady to dance? Asking that gentleman out? Has that prevented you from asking for that raise? For going after that job promotion? From running that race? We need to take a look to see how fear has affected us. And then once we do that, the next question is to ask ourselves, what's our part in holding on to this fear? Why are we holding on to this fear? Is this a valid fear? Is it going to kill us? Probably not. So what are we really afraid of? What's the validity in what we're really afraid of? You know, most of the things we're afraid of never happen. And so if these things that we're afraid of never happen, why do we spend so much of our time in turmoil about them? It was said once by a friend of mine, a mentor, a colleague, Dr. Tom Costa. He said, when you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, don't stop and buy a condo. Well, if we're going through times of trial and tribulation, and many of us are right now, I recognize that you may not know how you're going to make your rent payment this week or your mortgage payment this month. I recognize that some of us are not quite sure where we're going to get food. But this I do know. There's help. And that help starts with knowing that God is for you, not against you. And that your needs are always supplied. And in this moment of right here and right now, you're okay. And know that if we replace fear with faith, we're going to move out of this. It takes faith to move beyond fear. It takes realizing that there is a power in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. But we have to use it. We have to know that God or Spirit or whatever you want to call it is for us, working with us. And the way it works is by naming it, claiming it, and then doing what's in front of us to do. I know I am bountifully supplied by Spirit. Say that to yourself. I know I am bountifully supplied by Spirit. Here's another one for you. God perfects all that concerns me. God perfects all that concerns me. All my needs are met, and Spirit blesses me every day. Folks, I invite you to join us Sunday morning and hear Dr. Maxine live stream from our center. That's at 10:30 in the morning, and the way you can see that is by going to cslphilly.org. That's also a way that you can see what's happening with classes. You can catch up on some previous videos if you'd like, previous talks that she's given, or these love notes that she and I give. And what's more, it's a wonderful way to make a contribution. That's right. Make a contribution. Remember, if you believe that God is your source, God's your supply, then you can spare a little. I ask you to spare a little and make a contribution to the Greater Philadelphia Center for Spiritual Living. You may need us, and definitely we need you. So God bless you all. See you again. Bye-bye.